welcome everybody who's listening. This is another mastermind group call from the Solve Network. Today we have Deauke Robbens on, who is a healthy habits coach, and she has multiple certifications. She's going to be giving a presentation, and then afterwards we'll be having our normal discussion and Q&A. If you are interested in being on a call with our guest experts, please contact us at thesolvenetwork.com. And if you would like to be a guest expert on a call, you can always ask us what our parameters are. We'd love to have new people. Our goal is to create new connections between experts and potential clients who otherwise would not have met. And you can find out some information on people who have been past guest experts by going to the blog section of our website. So without further ado, we're going to hear from Deauke, who is going to be giving a presentation. Thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to hearing what you're going to be talking about.
Okie-doke. Thank you, Shane, for the introduction. And I truly appreciate this opportunity to speak on the Solve Network platform. And hi, everyone who's here in real time and who is watching the replay. It's great that you tuned in and are open to learning more about this universal topic, habits. We all know we have them, and we're very aware of most of the bad ones we have, and we know what good habits are. So why is it so hard to start them? Or maybe the struggle for you is not so much starting them, but maybe it's more sticking to those healthy and good habits. So we will touch on all those questions and concerns today. But before we do, if you wonder what makes me the big expert in the field, it's best I introduce myself first. So I'm a healthy habits coach and a leadership coach for entrepreneurs and corporate executives. I did not just decide one day that that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. I'm 43 now, and until 6 years ago, I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. My husband and I had just moved from Belgium, where we both are born and raised, to Indiana, USA. And I know it's your next question. Why did you move to Indiana? My husband would say it's for his job, and I would say it's for the adventure. So 6 months after our move, I became what I call an accidental entrepreneur. I was trying to sell necklaces that I had crafted myself from rocks that I collected from the beach of Lake Michigan. It was never a success. 6 months after that, I was certified high intensity trainer instructor, HIIT instructor, and I was teaching at the YMCA. I loved that one. And 6 months after that, I had my own fitness studio, and though I was never able to turn it into a very lucrative business, I still call it very successful because it changed the lives of many of my clients. I was more than just the HIIT teacher. With fitness. So I also love my freedom, and I love to travel. So I started to feel a little tied down with the classes, with teaching the classes. And I also thrived so much on the coaching aspect of it all that I wanted to focus more on longer programs for small groups, as well as for like one-on-one coaching. So I started using an online coaching platform that I love, and that made it possible to have it all, actually. Remote coaching for small groups and individuals. And then last year, I was able to sell my studio to another fitness business. So with the brick and mortar fully gone, I was able to step up my game with the online coaching. And I couldn't be much happier. And it couldn't have been a better timing with, by matter of speaking, the whole world now, being at home due to today's pandemic. So so with us moving from Belgium to Indiana, and with us, actually leaving our roots, we were in a completely different environment, and our routines were totally disrupted. So that means that, and especially me, because my husband, he had more or less a similar job, but I had I had the feeling that I had the opportunity to reinvent myself and to take time to discover who I wanted to be and to learn about human behavior and how the brain works and how your body works and how you can actually turn it into, you know, an incredible machine, and how you can push it to limits that, you know, are probably almost endless. That's how I feel about the human body and the human brain. I found it extremely exciting, and I look at myself as and the scientist and the study object. So I learn every day from myself, and I try to, you know, grow every day as a human being. So that was a little bit about me. So I thought that was introduction was necessary. Now for today, the topics of the presentation will be, well, first of all, my aim of this presentation is to bring awareness. So I wish nothing more than from now on or after this presentation, every time you do something regularly or you think something regularly or feel it, that the word habit pops in your head. Awareness and self-awareness are extremely powerful. They are, according to me, the first step to change. And a quick example of that would be if you are unaware that your posture is bad right now, so you're not sitting up straight, then there is nothing you will change about it. So if you just sat up a little bit straighter, that means that I just brought awareness to you and your posture. So you're welcome. That's my aim. So I will start with talking about the science of habits and what goes on in our brain when a habit occurs. Then I will explain why habits are so powerful that they are actually the key to change. With habit pitfalls, I want to warn you what to be careful of. Then next, I consider it my duty as a coach to tell you why the success rate of changing your habits with the support of a coach may be way higher than trying to do it by yourself. We will wrap up with, I will give you a few great book titles that were real eye-openers to me. Then if you stick with me to the end, you will have the opportunity to get a free habit audit from me. And this will get you started with your own scientific habit experiment. And then lastly, we will have the Q&A time that Shane will reintroduce first, and then I can answer all your questions. So the science of habits. A habit is a behavior that occurs regularly. And I explicitly say that it occurs regularly, not that one does regularly, just because we all know about physical habits, but habits can also be a thought or a feeling. An example of a physical habit action would be you wash your hands and your face every time you come home. I had to put that one in. I don't know if you get it. So that could be your new habit that you have, today. Then example of a habit that is a thought would be you think, now what? Every time the phone rings and you see it's your mother-in-law. That is the habit of a thought. And then the habit of a feeling would be you get excited every time you see the mountains. So with this, habit is not only actions, things that you do, it's also a thought and a feeling. A habit can also be positive or negative. So what we would call a good habit or a bad habit. Now, what is good habit and what is a bad habit? In my opinion, this is very subjective. And an example would be someone who goes for a run 3 times a week. If you want to take a guess, is that a good habit or a bad habit? I know you can't reply right now. The right answer is, it depends. I will explain. The man who goes for a run 3 times a week after his productive working day to clear his mind looks like a good habit to me. The woman who goes for a run 3 times a week, who has been having knee problems for months and has been advised by her physical therapist to quit running for 6 months because it only increases the problem. Bad habit. You get the point. To understand the science of habits, we have to go a little bit into the science of the human brain. So this is a neuron. I will not, there's hours and hours that you can, talk about the human brain. Is ultimately fascinating, but we'll stick to, what's most important to say right now for this presentation is that, so this is a neuron, and they're part of the brain. They're also part of the spinal cord. I believe that neurons are one of the most fascinating types of cells in the human body. They're essential for every action that our body and our brain carries out. And what is fascinating is that it is the complexity of the neuronal networks that gives us our personalities and our consciousness. So they're responsible for the most basic of actions to the most intricate. From automatic reflex actions to deep thoughts about the universe, neurons cover it all. Our brain is made of about 86 billion neurons or nerve cells, and they have the amazing ability to gather and transmit electrochemical signals. And you could think of them like the gates of wires in a computer. So what neurons do is what they fire. So it's like they make a pathway to another neuron. That's with synapses. We won't go into all of that. And so every time there's an action or a thought or a feeling, a neuron fires towards another neuron, and so there's a connection that is linked there. Why this is important to explain is because I always like to use this image to explain how a habit starts. For my explanation, I will give an example for how a bad habit could start. So something that I would consider a bad habit. It depends. Shane, you might think differently. Well, we'll talk about it afterwards. So this image that I'm going to use, and several images, is now to explain the bad habit that will start, but it works just the same for how a good habit starts. So example would be, while you have a habit of drinking a few glasses of wine in the weekend, you have never had a habit of drinking from Monday to Friday, for example. So you're not used to drinking during weekdays. Now this image represents that non-existent habit. So this is like there would be no firing of these neurons. There's nothing going on, all is still. It's like, beautiful, clean field. Now, one day you move to a new neighborhood and there's a real community feeling in that neighborhood. Everyone gets along, and every Wednesday there's this tradition that everyone gathers by the pit fire and hangs out together and has a glass of wine. Now, week one that you move there and that you join them with the pit fire, you kindly decline to drink along because, well, it's just not a thing that you do drink during the week. But the week after, oh well, why not? And slowly it becomes a habit of drinking on Wednesdays. So pathways in the brain are starting to form and are reinforced through repetition. And in neuroscience, you probably have heard of it, you probably know it very well. This is called brain plasticity, also called, or more precise, synaptic plasticity. So then, as the bottle was not empty, you got to take it home from all the neighbors, and you didn't want it to go bad, so you had a glass on Thursday evening. and you finish the rest on Friday evening. Before you know it, the pathway in your brain goes from this, you keep repeating that action, goes from this to this. And suddenly you are drinking every day of the week a glass of wine. So there was nothing at first, there was no habit. And so something triggered it, that it is now a habit. And the trigger was moving to a new neighborhood and, joining the community on Wednesdays. Now, you may ask yourself, can these pathways, can that be reversed? So going from a paved or a concrete road, can it go back to that beautiful field? Yes, it can. So if you stop the habit or just decrease it first and then stop the habit, there will, the grass will grow over it again, but there will always be that little, you will always see a little bit where it was, but it can be reversed. So that is the science of the habits. It's the neurons that fire together, and that's what's going on in your brain. And the best image to look at what happened is with that field, and then it becomes a road. That's the science of how a new habit starts. Now, the power of habits. So once you understand how a habit is formed, you can better understand that habits are the long hidden secret key to change. And the next thing we need to learn is, how do we change our habits? So that now that we understand this, how do we change it? Here comes the habit loop. So there's some discussion who pinned down the term the habit loop, but it would be Charles Deauke, I don't know how to pronounce his name, who discovered a simple loop, a neurological loop that would be at the core of every habit. And a loop consists of 3 parts. There is a cue, a routine, and a reward. A great example of how you can understand this loop would be that I had a client, and she was overweight, and she was convinced that she really did not eat that much, so it couldn't come from extra calories. So that's why I had her go through the habit loop. So we really analyzed from almost minute to minute her day. And so what we discovered and what her brain put into the unconsciousness was the following, and you can follow with the habit loop. So every time she came home from work, she went through the back door. So, and then the first thing she did was, because she was starving, she went to her fridge and she grabbed whatever she could find out of her fridge. And then she cleaned up a little bit, and then she started dinner, and then she had a normal dinner. So what I did with her and what we analyzed was that the cue, so what triggered her to eat and eventually overeat was, the cue was that when she walked through her back door, that was like a trigger that, okay, I'm going to the fridge and I'm gonna, gratify or satisfy this hunger feeling that I have. So the going through the door was the cue. The routine was grab something from the fridge, and her reward was she felt satisfied. She felt a fuller stomach, and she felt happy. But then the longer term thing that happened was that she felt really bad. She felt bad about herself. She felt guilty, and she beat herself up about it. So with the habit loop, what you can do is several things. You can take away the cue, or you can change the cue. You can change the routine, or you can change the reward. And what we did, the client and I, was the following. So going through her back door was the cue. So she experimented with going through the front door. Now, this may sound silly, like really, but this was actually her cue, and it had been for years. So changing where she went in the house actually made her not go through to the fridge immediately, and on the contrary, she took off her shoes by going through the front door, and she went straight to her bedroom, and she changed clothes. And after a couple of weeks, we had that change to, she changed into her workout clothes, then she did a little workout, and so on. So changing the cue changed everything for her. You can also change the routine. Just gonna check time. Change the routine. And so for her, that was a little bit harder. So her going through the back door and then not going to the fridge was a little bit harder, but we had her put a post-it on the fridge with her motivation, why it was important for her to lose weight. And all her great motivations, because she wanted to be more flexible. And when she had grandchildren, she wanted to play with the grandchildren and feel fitter, and she wanted to travel and, even one day hike to the mountains. And so she put her rewards card, look, why this was important for her. She put that on the fridge. So that was a huge reminder for her to not open the fridge and start eating. So she tried with that, but that was less successful for her than going through the front door. Now, with habits, there are pitfalls. And one of them would be that they creep in, like bad habits creep in just like that. So a good example would be the one I gave with you moving to a new neighborhood and becoming part of a different community. Another one would be a good example would be now today, as we're all home way more, that your routine of going to work is disrupted, or for many. So they're in the house and everyone's stocked up on food. So if you are a emotional eater and have little self-discipline and all that, and you're stuck in the house with all that food, it could be that you are going to start a bad habit, because you stay up later. It's kind of, you kind of feel like you have more freedom. It's kind of vacation, but then again, it's not. It's weird, right? Everyone can agree on that. It's weird times. So stay up later. So that means that you could start to get hungry again after dinner, because you're up later than you're normally in bed before you start to feel hungry again. And that you would start a late night snacking habit, just unconsciously. You're hungry and you're starting to eat. And if you keep doing that, by the time we're ever out of this crisis, you will have developed that habit, and you will take it into life after Corona, right? So to be careful with that, how bad habits creep in is super important. Why we fail to start good habits is because, and I've seen it over again, people are, when they want to start a new lifestyle, they are super motivated, and they're going for it, and they cannot go fast enough. And the thing is that they take on too much. They take on too much on their plate. So they get overwhelmed and they quit because it's too much of a change. So the trick here is to start small. And I always use this phrase, start ridiculously small. So if you want to increase your fitness level, start with 5 squats per day. it's better to do something than to do nothing. And consistency is more important than intensity to start a new habit. So don't overdo it, start super small. And then while we fail to stick to good habits, is because they slip away from us because we're not used to it. It's something new and it slips away in time, and we don't have that awareness that you're sidetracking, and before you know it, you're back to your old habits because you have been doing those for 30, 40 longer years. So it's normal that you go back to that, especially when things get tough. You go to what you know and not what you don't know. Then why is working with a coach more successful than trying it, for many, than trying it on your own? It's because a coach gives you accountability, which is huge for most part of the population. When you have someone that you need to be accountable to, things work way better than to have that discipline and just do it out of your own conviction, or I don't know if I said that right. So because of accountability, huge. And then the coach can keep an eye on the bigger picture. So you set your goals, and when you're working hard on changing things in your life, at a certain point you can get overwhelmed and you're starting to focus on details, and your coach can bring you back to, back down and tell you, hey, this is what we were working on. You're getting distracted. We're going to focus on this now, for the next 3-4 months and nothing else. So the coach will bring you that awareness that you're sidetracking and keep the eye for you on the bigger picture. And then a coach, I compare that it's like the coach of an athlete. So whatever habit you want to work on, if you compare your coach as it's like the coach of an athlete, with which I mean, a coach of an athlete records the training of the athlete, and then together with the athlete, they analyze the training. And so you see exactly where it's going wrong or where you can be more efficient. If you're doing this by yourself, then there's no one that can look at that with you and review how you're doing your training or your new project with changing your habit. So with your coach, you can go into detail and look at that cue, trigger, reward, cue, action, reward. Where exactly are we not efficient? Where is the struggle? Where is it going wrong? Where are we sidetracking? So that's the great thing about working with a coach. And then these are books that I've read that were an eye-opener to me. You may have, some titles may look familiar. I'm sure that Shane will send everyone this list, or I can send it, whatever you want. So that's the book. If you are new to Audible, if you've never tried an audiobook from Audible before, then I can send a free book to you if you would like to try audiobooks. And then I'm missing a part. Okay, so one slide missing here. So your free habits audit, how you can get hold of that is that you can schedule an appointment with me. And what we do is that we look at your cue, action, and reward for a specific thing, something you want to work on, whether it's nutrition, fitness, mindset, leadership, productivity. We go through the loops very much in detail. We do a little audit, and I give you a couple of tips and techniques to try out and see if you can change the cue, the action, or the reward. So it's a 25 to 30-minute call, and it's free. So if you want to get started on changing those habits that you're not happy with and that don't bring you closer to your goal, then I'd be happy to get on a call with you.